Welcome to On the Homefront. I'm Jeff Dudan. Today, we are joined by one of the original pilots for the movie Top Gun. He was the lead solo pilot for the U.S. Navy's Blue Angels, a former Naval Academy football player, and an accomplished entrepreneur. Welcome to the Homefront, John Gucci Foley.
Hey, Jeff, I'm glad to be here. And those 4 words are going to mean something much deeper here by the end of this interview.
Well, fantastic. My first question, because it's a story that resonated with me, we have a passion and a heart for children here and really understand the impact that's made in young people's lives by people like that. Just take a minute. When was the first time that you realized that you wanted to be a pilot?
Oh, man, I love that question. My dad was my hero, right? And my dad was an Army officer and an engineer. So when I was growing up, I wanted to be just like him. So I'm thinking, hey, I'll be an Army officer and I'll be an engineer. And then one day, I'll never forget this day. I'm 11 years old. We're in Newport, Rhode Island, and he took me to an air show. And I never forget that moment. If you've ever been at an air show, or anybody who's listening, it's visceral, right? This is not just, you're just not looking at the jets. You feel it. You feel the energy in the crowd, the smoke oil, the thunder, the noise. And it's kind of like being at the Super Bowl. And I'm looking up in the sky, and there's these 6 magnificent blue jets flying that day. And something hit me in my heart, not just my head, Jeff. Big difference, right? And I turned to my dad. I said, Dad, I'm going to do that. 11-year-old kid, right? And it took me 18 years from that moment when something hit me in my heart, with lots of obstacles, lots of career, path changing. Then 18 years later, I'm strapping in that jet.
You had some challenges getting into the service. Can you talk us through your path as you grew up and eventually getting into the Navy, what you had to go through and some of the stops you made along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think more important, it's for all of us, right? I mean, once you have that goal and that vision, the path seems to change. There's never a direct line in my life, right? So I'll share a little bit of my story. So from that moment, I think I'm in junior high. I realized, okay, I got to join the Navy or at that time. And I said, well, but I got to be an officer because I need to fly jets. So I got to either go to the academies or, go to ROTC or something. So I knew, then I said, well, what does that require? And, basically, do the best you can, get some good grades, athletics matter, and community service. So those 3 things. So I said, okay, need to do some of that stuff. Everything's going well. Doing well in school. I'm captain of the wrestling team. Apply for the academies, and I get rejected. But I get rejected not because of that stuff, medically. They tell me I'm not medically qualified. Now, this surprised the crap out of me, Jeff, because number one, I'm a healthy young kid wrestling, playing football. I mean, I'm as healthy as I think I can be. And here was the answer. They said I had too much protein in my urine. What the hell is that? Right. First off, I mean, as a kid, I'm like, first off, what is that? And what am I supposed to do about it? Right. So you ever feel like you can't control the world, right? Well, we know you can't, but what you can control is yourself. Right. And so with me, I'm disappointed because I'm moping around thinking my dream has just got cut down. And it took about 3 days. And my dad's like, what are you doing? He said, well, I said, what do you mean? He goes, why are you moping around? I said, well, I just got rejected. My dream's gone. He goes, no, come up with plan B. Right. And I was like, oh, that's a novel idea. And my plan B was very simply, he says, well, reapply. So I did, and I got rejected again because I was outside of the parameters of this stupid medical thing in the military. But again, instead of giving up, I said, I'm going to go through a waiver process, and that takes a year. So I went to Colorado, actually played football for the Buffs, walked on, but I never lost my dream of going to the academies. And I go through the process. Sure enough, I find out there's nothing wrong with me. It's just, it's probably from cutting weight on the wrestling, But the bottom line is, I get accepted and boom, off to the academy. Now, I got to be honest with you, Jeff, I didn't graduate number 1 in my class. Okay. Academically, I graduated in the half that allows the other half to be called the top, by the way. Okay. But I got above the line, and something I talk a lot about in the book and other things is it's this red line. It's always there in life. You're either above it or below it. And guess what? Every person listening to this knows Are they above or below that line in their life, right? And I was barely above it, but I got the slot as a pilot. And now, in the Navy, you start all over again. Doesn't matter what your grades are. You start from zero, and they grade you every single flight. You go to Pensacola, ground school, then initial training, go into jets, and it's just a career path, right? And things seem to be going pretty well. I get lots of rejection on types of airplanes, but I end up flying A4s, A7s, F-14s in the movie Top Gun. I didn't fly F-14. I was flying A7s of the days. We were off the Enterprise. And then I get selected for the Blue Angels. And my life changed, Jeff. Absolutely changed. 18 years, though, of ups and downs to get there.
Incredible. I want to double click on your time at Colorado,
Yeah.
walking on to a Division I school. I mean, some people say it's a bigger jump between high school and college, especially Division I like that, than it is from college to pro. So you go, you walk on, you're DB, you're looking to be a DB. So right off the bat, you're not 6'5", 265. You're running around on this field and you're playing the scout team. I had the exact same experience. I walked on to the University of Northern Iowa. I had only played 2 years of football. I had never tackled anybody in my life. I had never been in the 3-point stance. And all of a sudden, and they expect you to have these skills.
Yeah.
They expect you to have been playing your entire life. So what was that like for you at Colorado? Are there any stories that you got there that are memorable? And then how did that ultimately prepare you for the Blue Angels?
Hey, man, I love it. First off, you did look like a ball player. I'm sitting there going, this guy played ball, man. And, you just nailed it, right? It's not the physical, it's the mental, it's the mindset that either breaks you or makes you making those leaps. And, in hindsight, I had a belief I could make the team, right? Now, I'm a small, I'm 5'9", about 165 pounds. I mean, I ran like a 4, 6, but it wasn't your 4.4, right? And so I didn't have the physical skills to walk on a Division I team, but I had the mindset that, I can play at that level. Why I thought that, I have no clue, Jeff. No clue, right? I remember, walking on, and I don't know what it was like in your experience, but mine at Colorado is they take all these walk-ons and all the scholarship athletes, all the All-Americans. They've been there for a couple of weeks. They just run the hell out of you. 3 days, right? 3 days of trying to make you quit. It's kind of like SEAL training. It's very, very same thing. Let's just see how bad you want it, right?
That's right.
And I do fine on that, right? But I'm walking off the field last day, and I know that they're going to make a recommendation to the head coach on who to even, who to take and who not. And I walked up to this coach, and I looked him in the eye, and I don't know why I said this. I hadn't premeditated it. I just looked at the coach, and I said, Coach, give me the pads. I said, just give me the pads, because the first 3 days are in shorts and t-shirts, and I'm small and it doesn't matter, right? But you'll find out. And guess what? They gave me the pads, and that's all I needed. That's all I wanted was a shot. And someone just yesterday, I'm at an event here. I'm speaking up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and they said this to me. They said, you got a heart of a lion. And I thought, where the hell did that come from? And I realized that that's what it was. It was the heart. Undersized, should never have been on the field, but the passion and the heart said, just give me a chance. And I think that's so many people in life, we give up without even taking a chance.
The glad to be here mindset is something that is a through line in your speaking and inside of your book. It's number 5 of the 5 dynamics.
Yeah, good.
When did you first? Yeah, I read it. No, I just didn't, John. I didn't just say I read it. Like I got into it, and it was really, really good. I always appreciate when people put things together in a concise and actionable way. Right. And generally people that have done something like you've done, the level of excellence in the Blue Angels that's required, the level of focus that's required, the risk that's inherent with that. You have a view of what excellence looks like. And you did an excellent job of laying that out for all of us. So, but the glad to be here mindset, right? That's not a buzzword that you typically hear. When did you first come up with that? And what does it mean?
Yeah, well, to me, it means the combination of excellence and appreciation and gratitude. It's when you combine your passion with your purpose and presence. All right. So this isn't just fluffy. Glad to be here is not just, fluffy. I mean, where did it come up with it? Well, number one, first time my mom was always talking about positivity and stuff. But it really came up on the Blue Angels. The Blue Angels, when you apply for the Blues, you're never allowed to sit in on a debrief. That's the sacred realm of the Blue Angels. That's where after we fly. It's think post game with the team, right? Going through the films and stuff. But as an applicant, and when I say an applicant, you have to have like 1,500 hours tactical jets, flown jets off aircraft carriers, be an instructor pilot. That I was all that stuff. So I'd flown F-8 or no F-18s. Yeah, I was flying F-18s, instructor pilot. Like 400 carrier landings. So if you get to that level, you've got some skill, right? But that's not what we're picking on. Those five dynamics kick in, and what you pick on is, first off, does someone, passionate about what they're doing? Are they doing it for a purpose, and a purpose higher than self? If you're doing it just to fly upside down 100 feet off the ground at 500 miles per hour through buildings, which by the way is cool as hell, if you're doing that, all right, that's not why we're picking you. Because what you're picking you for is to be on that crowd line, to be an inspiration for a kid, right? It's about the youth, right? I always used to sign autographs, reach for your hopes and dreams, because that's what I did, and I happened to be fortunate to make it. So anyhow, the idea of the first time once I got selected, I sit in on the debrief. This is now after the Blues have flown. And I'm just a newbie. We call them newbies, like a rookie, right? And all of a sudden, it starts with the boss of the Blue Angels, starts the comments, and he's he talked about how he felt. He talked about safeties, things that he had done wrong, and was laying it out to the team. But he acknowledged others, and then his last statement was glad to be here. And I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. Then the next person does the exact same thing. They look inward first, though. They say, hey, I felt good about this event, or I didn't. Here's things that I was off on, pointing themselves out, not somebody else. And then they said, glad to be here. All of a sudden, it goes around the table. Everybody's ending their comments with glad to be here. And I'm sitting there going, holy crap. These are my icons. These are the best of the best. They're self-reflective. They're looking at, they're laying it on the table. That's one of the five dynamics. Being open and honest. They're humble. Check your ego at the door. There's respect. There's accountability. And they end with glad to be here. And I went, something's magical there. Now, I will tell you this, that on the Blue Angels, glad to be here initially meant I'm just glad to be selected for this team. I'm glad to be sitting in the room. I'm glad to have this opportunity. But as my time on the Blues, and more importantly, after the Blue Angels, glad to be here has taken on a much richer and deeper meaning. Sometimes it was just, I'm glad to be alive. I mean, I had 3 of those days where you're flying and you land and you go, oh my God, I almost died. And life is better. I mean, have you ever had those experiences? I'll tell you what, number one, the grass is greener, the sky is bluer, ice cream tastes better, people are friendlier. I mean, your whole perspective on life changes quickly. Then, over time, you get sucked back into every day, right? But glad to be here, to me now, means much more than even that. It's a lifestyle, it's a mindset, it's an ethos to live every day in its fullness and to give it to others.
Well, and it's connected to the concept of gratitude, which
nice.
Gratitude is scientifically proven to make us healthier, to make us happier, to make us more mentally fit. Yes. Appreciation for what we have. I mean, you can look around the world, and I've had several military people on who have traveled the world, and we'll catch comments because they'll say, "I've been around the world and I've lived a lot of places and I've seen a lot of things, and America is still the greatest country in the world." And so tying that to this concept of gratitude, being thankful for where we are, what we've got going on, and then to touch on the fact that you said being on the line after the show and talking to the kids, you've probably influenced people to join the military. Patriotism's down in this country. Significantly down. Our volunteer forces are under where they need to be. It's at Homefront Brands, which is my company. Nice. Retired Brigadier General Tony Tata is on our board, and
nice.
Partner. Yeah, I don't know if you know Tony or not, but we're or of Tony, but nice. And then we are we're partnered with Operation Homefront, so we're very much interested in helping veterans transition and what we do here. So now you talked about leadership, and you've got 6 pilots that make it. You've got a diamond formation. You've got 2 solos, and what probably goes lost on a lot of people is the size of the support crew that you have and the excellence. So when you talk about you're speaking to organizations and the work that you do, creating excellence in organizations, the Blue Angels is a big team. It's not just not the quarterback out there, right?
Exactly.
It's everybody on the organization. What's the interaction like between the pilots and the crew?
Well, there's extreme trust, okay, and extreme respect. And it starts with respecting every single person for who they are and what they do. So just like you said, football is a great analogy. It's not the pilots, it's not the quarterback, right? There's a full team, right? You need the lineman, man. You need the scout team. You need everybody, right? And same thing on the Blue Angels. So number one, that teamwork is not a buzzword. It's not like something, you just talk about. It's real, okay? It's real because you trust them with your life. So if you ever want to really test what level of trust you have, make it life or death. Now, very few things in our life are like this, right? Yeah. But when life and death comes up, it actually makes things easier. Things get very clear, right?
Okay. It's pretty black and white.
Yeah, and here's the thing: I never worried about dying, right? Because I never worried about that. What I didn't want to do, what I worried about, was hurting someone else. I didn't want my mistake or my lack of attention to be the effect for somebody else. And that's what everyone on the team. I mean, my plane captain, all right, who doesn't fly in the jet, but he or she owns the airplane. I told he or she that. I said, look, even though my name's on the airplane, it looks fancy, right? Lieutenant Commander John Gucci Foley. No, they own the jet. I borrowed it for an hour. Okay. But see, they believed that. It wasn't just a term. They would get out there well before I ever showed up. They made sure the jet was ready to go. They made sure my left glove's over my right glove, 126 switches in an exact correct position. When I walk up to the airplane, I don't have to pre-flight it. I trust them with my life, and they salute me, and I salute them back. And all they say is this: sir, the jet's ready to go. Now that statement was, I got up 4 hours. They didn't say I got 4 hours earlier. I did all this stuff. I started the engine. I made sure everything's ready to go. I actually waxed the airplane. I mean, they do everything. No, they just said, sir, the jet's ready to go. And you trust them. But they trust you back. See, it's communication. And that's when I got out of the airplane, I realized you have to appreciate people. The glad to be here means we're a team. There's 140 support troops for the 6 pilots, right? And they're the real heart and soul of the team.
And how many air shows a year for? And the tenure of the pilots is 1 year or 2?
No, it's 2 years as a pilot. One pilot gets a 3-year tour, which I was fortunate to do that. But your first year, you're the narrator, right? But so 2 years in flying the jets. If you're support personnel, it's 3 years. So it's like a football team. New people coming in and coming out all the time. We rotate people through. So the idea of what position you fly, all that gets sorted out afterwards, right? But you're there for your first year, even though you're a highly skilled, instructor, you're in a learning mode. Okay, you get assigned a mentor. If you're number 6, it's number 5. If it's number 3, or it's number 4, and the boss and 2 have a special relationship. But you're mentored. You're truly brought to a level. I got to tell you, we increase. We fly at 18 inches. Now, picture this, Jeff. 18 inches. That's closer than you are to your monitor right now, and me too. People who are watching this or listening, closer to your phone. 18 inches. A 22-ton jet at 500 miles per hour. You better know trust, right? It's not a word. It's a lifestyle. And you got to trust yourself. You got to know what you're capable of. You got to know where you're weak, by the way. That's even harder. You got to trust your teammate, like we're talking about. And at the end of the day, you got to perform. I mean, you got to show up with your A game every single day. It's fun.
Does the crew turn over, or is the crew consistent, or they turn over with the pilots?
Yeah, well, everyone's on their own rotation. So the crew is there for 3 years. So we
Okay.
have a third of the team is rotating out, and they're usually your best and most senior people, and a third of the new people are coming in, and it's a pecking order. You have to earn the right to get the chance to do this, and then you have to earn the trust and respect of your own peers,
Yeah.
and that's how it works.
Yeah. Any close calls or
Oh, hell yeah.
events that you're at liberty to share
Oh,
from your
sure,
time
sure,
flying?
sure. Now, the Blues, we work really hard on alleviating these, right? And that's why we have a tremendous amount of preparation and focus called the brief. We debrief. That's where we learn and grow. We try to pick up near misses before you actually have an accident. I mean, I don't know if you knew this, but when I joined the team, there was a 10% mortality rate. We had 26 pilots had been killed, and there'd been less than there's less Blue Angels than Popes, by the way. You know what Pope number we're on, by the way?
I do not.
I think it's 266. But I mean, here's the thing: it's an extreme honor. But would you do a job where, when you walked in, they said, "Hey, congratulations! You got 2 years here, and there's a 10% chance that you're not going to walk away, and you're going to die, but not like from a car accident. You're going to die on the job, right?" And it's
Yeah.
like, holy shit! But that's not how we think. Okay, I throw those numbers, and you no, what you really think is, not only am I going to make it, we're all going to make it. Okay, we're going to do something special. We're here not for ourselves. We're here to inspire, be an ambassador of goodwill to another human being. I do want to point that you got to excel. When you push the limits push back. Okay, I'll say that again. When you push the limits push back. So you got to be smart. Okay,
Okay.
it's easy to do something stupid, but to fly at that edge, you have to be smart, and you have to have constraints in there. We have lots of safety protocols. And since I joined the team, the balloons, not because of me, because of this process, we've decreased that rate tremendously, right? So the idea there is be good at what you do, and constantly learn. We're in a constant learning. I want to grow. And then the most important part, and you talked about giving back to the vets, is you got to give back. You got to give,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
That's where the magic comes in.
Yeah. These rituals that were so important in keeping everybody safe and getting people back on the ground so that they could
Mm-hmm.
be glad to be there. How have you translated these rituals that you've learned into your venture capital life, into your business
Yeah.
consulting, into helping people that maybe haven't had the benefit of service to be able
Yeah.
to be better leaders, more disciplined leaders, and more successful?
Well, I love that question because rituals matter, right?
Yeah.
So there's two things I want to talk about here. One is the rituals that I now talk about in the business world or your professional life, right? And I work with the best companies in the world to a lot of, by the way, Janny King. I was just with them 2 days ago. I don't know if
Okay,
you
great.
know
Yeah.
them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of franchisees, which I know you're strong at, right?
Yeah.
So number one, there's the business side, but it's not the most important side, but the professional side, and that is you got to connect, align, and commit. Okay, three things. Every high performance team does this. You know this. First, you got to connect as human beings. People come first. Second is you got to align. Well, align what? Align the vision and the strategy. Align all the moving parts, communication. We spend a lot of time in business doing that. But the third one is the commitment level. And this is only an ask. You can't force this on anybody. But, I mean, I ask, and in the military, it's pretty clear. It was definitely clear in the Blue Angels, is that you're willing to give your life for your teammate. That's a pretty high commitment level. All
Yeah.
right. And here's the thing is you know it. All right. And you also know when someone's struggling with that, right? And it's easy. At that level, it's easy. You will do whatever it takes for your teammate, right? And so I always ask a couple things, and I would ask who's ever listening to this. Number one, what are you willing to die for? It's an interesting question. I mean, reflect on that, right? Now, here's a better question though, and that is, what are you willing to live for? And that's what
Mm.
we're doing, right? What are you able to share to make a difference in someone else's life, to enjoy this life, right? So on the business side, I call it a cadence of execution. I unpack what worked, not just in the military, but specifically on the Blue Angels. The magic is in the cadence. It's this, habits, brief, get prepared, execute with high trust, debrief. That's the most critical one. Most people don't do it at the level I'm talking about. It's an internal debrief, right? Team debrief. That will accelerate you up. But it starts from the book. I call it the Diamond Performance Framework or Fearless Success. You got to have beliefs first, though. So it's not about the vision. It's about connecting the vision to beliefs, getting people to believe in you and the organization, and executing to high trust. Now, having said all that, okay, that's in the book. That's a business case. I'm writing my new book called The Glad to Be Here Mindset. And Jeff, this is the difference. This is a differentiator, okay? It's the habit of every morning. How do you wake up, okay? How do you start your day? So I start my day with what I call my glad to be here wake up, all right? Did it this morning and do it every morning. The minute I wake up, I just, first off, I check. It's called awareness, right? Mindfulness. Check the first conscious thought that hits your head. Okay. Do this tomorrow, okay, for you, right? See what that is, all right? See if it's a thought like, holy crap, what am I late to? What's the next problem I got to solve? Or if it's like, wow, today's kind of magical. This is a beautiful life. Okay, I'm with my daughter. You're going to be spending time, right? Just watch your own mind. Now, here's the beautiful thing. If it's a negative thought or a thought that's causing you angst, just be aware of it and go, okay, that's fine. But what am I grateful for? What am I grateful for in the present moment? You talked about the science behind gratitude, right? So I do that every morning. Here's a technique. What I've learned, though, is it's not enough just to say, what am I grateful for in the present moment. My personal technique, the Gucci technique, is go back 24 hours. You can go back as far as you want in your life, but I do this every day. So I'll go back 24 hours. And I just say, what happened yesterday? Did I have something to be grateful for? But I remember it in my heart, not my head. This is the technique. It's really easy to stay in your head. All right. But what I try to do is remember like this interaction. So I'm hopefully going to remember you tomorrow. Okay. And I'll remember your smile right now. And I'll think about how do I feel in my heart about doing that interview, and I'll just remember the magical part. Or maybe it's I'm leaving the hotel, right? So I always like to leave tips for the maids, right? And I give them a little smiley face, something. But I imagine when she walks in, and by the way, I clean the room for them. I always make my bed, make your bed kind of crap, but
Yep.
I do that, right? But I think in my mind, I just want them to walk in and feel relief instead of a room that's just been blown up. It's like, did anybody even sleep here? That's what I want them to feel, right? So I'm thinking of them, right? And that's the idea as a leader. Go forward. The third step is go forward in your day and think of someone else. And what can you do to make their day better? That's what I call my glad to be a wake up. It's my ritual every morning. And I got a bunch more. We can talk later if you want, but that's just one technique. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. That's fantastic. I made notes of it. I will try it tomorrow morning.
Nice.
I did notice something interesting in the book, though. You listed people, process, and purpose.
Yeah.
Usually people list purpose first. You listed it last. And I think what connected with me as I'm listening to you talk here is when you are in an elite performance environment, it's always people first. If you listen to Nick Saban talk about it, it's about the players. If you listen to Belichick talk, it's about the players, so people, when you listen to you talk about like, hey, it's about the people first. You got to have a purpose to do it. But if people fail in a high risk, high gain environment, like it's not going to be good. So you really people first. Is that intentional? Was that intentional, or is that just the way it fell out onto the page and then your editor switched it around?
Oh no, hell no, no editors. That's the way I think. But it's by intentional is it's not the way I always thought, right? It's usually more experience you learn this way, right? So it's funny you talked about Nick. So Nick Saban calls me up it was a few years ago now. And he says, "Hey Gucci, can you come talk to the team?" I said, "Yeah, I'd be honored, of course, right?" And so I got some Saban stories sitting in his office beforehand, and he's dipping because he dips, and we're talking about. He didn't want to talk about football. He wanted to talk about flying jets and stuff, and we did. And I spent 3 days with the team. It was precious, right? But Nick Saban is exactly that, all right? And then it's the people, then you get with the program. It's a process, okay? My dad used to say that, get with the program. There's a program, okay? And that's the process. And then the purpose will come out. Now, it's funny you mentioned Bill Belichick. So Bill and I were just on the phone here last week. Okay. We met at an event, and actually I didn't, it's a Blue Angel thing. This guy's coming, walking towards me, and I'm thinking it's one of my old buddies. And so I from a distance, I wave and I go walking up, and I get about, close as you and I are with the cell phone here. And I look and I go, Belichick? And he goes, yeah, and he looks at me and he's like, "Who are you, asshole?" Right? I mean, not so much, but I go, "Hey, John Gucci Foley." I said, "Your dad was my coach," and then all of a sudden the everything drops, right? He goes, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah, because I played football at Navy after Colorado,
Right.
and Bill's dad was the scout team coach, right?" And anyhow, we had a wonderful. Incredible experience, and we became friends. I'm not kidding you, and we're on each other's cell phones, and we chat every now and then. But he's got it down too, right? And so the idea of people come first. There's so many companies that say that, but they don't do it,
Mm.
right? And I
Yeah.
think you're absolutely right that on the Blue Angels and in things I talk about, it's you got to hire the right people. You got to bring the right A players in on any team, right? But that's not enough. But that comes first, and then you got to train them. You got to mentor them. You got to bring them up to the standards of the organization. And guess what? When I got selected for the Blues, I thought I was operating at a pretty high level. I walk in that room, I went, "Holy crap! They're operating at a whole new level." And you know this. You part of an organization, a culture that, and I had to up my game. I mean, I was scared. I'm like, how am I going to do this? Not as a human being, also, but as a as a professional. And so people do come first, and then you better have the processes to scale this. All right, and at the end of the day, you connect it back to that purpose, and now you got the magic. That's the glad to be here magic.
Everybody wants to be part of a winning team. People want to be up to something and going somewhere. I'm always looking for people that are, doing something interesting, pushing themselves, going somewhere new or exciting, because that's where the action happens, man. That's, out in all the great things happen out on the edge in the rarefied air where the air is
Yes.
thin, and the opportunity, the margin for error gets smaller. The victory gets sweeter.
Yes.
So yeah, and it's great. But like for a lot of people, man, like you get you kind of you like that frog in the water that's boiling. You get out
Yeah.
into the company, and there's the rules and this and that and the other thing, and maybe everybody's not wanted to put their oars and pull so hard in the same direction, and it's a challenge to get people in every environment to really want to win in that way. I came across something.
So how
Yes.
do you change that? I know I don't mean to throw you off, but we're having a great conversation. So how do you change that to where you get people? What's your technique? Rowing in the same direction.
Look, there's a great book by Lencioni called The Four Obsessions
Yeah.
of an Extraordinary CEO, and 3 of them have the word clarity on it, right?
Nice.
So like what in our business, and I just coached a new training class of franchisees this morning.
Oh, you did? Beautiful.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, one of your key roles is to remove latency from your business. So from the time that you determine that there's an action that needs to be taken to the time that action is taken, that's latency between that time. So what causes latency? Number one, a lack of clarity. When people aren't clear about what to do, they're going to hesitate, they're going to make something up, or they're going to do nothing at all. Okay, latency in your business. Number 2, people are conflict averse. People are too polite, and so I say, look, there's 3 little words that ultimately got my wife to marry me. The first, and they're like, "Is it I love you?" I said, "No, it's lower your standards." No, so. But no, it's these 3 words are rush to conflict. Like if you can show up, right? Because I do this thing where I tap out a song on the table and I say, "What song is it?" Nobody knows because they can't hear what I think. So the moment that you realize that something needs to or there's a conflict or something going wrong, don't say, "Well, I'll send them an email and I'll set up a meeting 2 days from now and then I'll report back next week as to what it was." Pick up the phone, but you've got to be able to show up without the blow up. There's a
Yeah.
great quote that says, the person who can most accurately describe reality without laying blame shall emerge as the leader. So
Nice.
to be able to rush to conflict, to pick up the call, to get an organization that understands that picking up the phone, rushing to conflict, and that everybody's responsible to, at the moment they find out something is not going the way it's supposed to go, is to bring it to the attention or to rush to that conflict and then be able to not lay blame and just to get the
Yeah.
situation resolved. It's a conditioning of a team that needs to happen because it's not typical in business. So those are the types of things that I really work on instilling in our organization, making sure there's clarity, making sure that we're comfortable in having healthy conflict inside of it, and then making sure that, look, everybody understands that what the goal is. The overarching goal. This is who we are. This is why it matters. I mean, for us, since you asked. We're partners with Carson Scholars Foundation. By 2037, we're going to give 1 million books away to children. We're going to raise a
Wow.
certain amount of money for Operation Homefront. We care greatly about financial security for families on Main Street, USA. That's why we help people get into business. Businesses are a high-class asset. And then it's my job to show up every day and make sure that I'm over communicating, because some people get paid by the hour. Other people get paid commission or by the job, but true leaders get paid by the conversation. It's the engagements that we have. It's the words that we say. It's the clarity that we create. It's the inspiration that we give to people. And like, that's what people want to be a part of. And,
Yeah.
And if it's anybody who's in a leadership position, it's their responsibility to kind of further that agenda. And then we all just get to work after it. No, it's not going to be perfect. We don't, by the way, when we make a mistake, like, it's not like when the angels make a mistake, like nobody dies generally, here. So we have a greater margin of error than certainly you did.
Wow, love your answer. I can see why you're helping so many companies and so many people. Yeah, I love the clarity answer. I got the 4 C's of trust. I'm going to add to your pile there. You might want to think about this. But I really like what you talked about when why you're doing this. 1 million books to kids, man. I love that, right?
Yeah.
Making a difference in other people's lives. And my wife and I started the Glad to Be Here Foundation. And so we give 10% of all our fees to charity. But here's the cool part. And try this, Jeff, if you're not already doing it. Every client that hires me, they don't know this, but I tell them, hey, we're gonna give 10% to charity. And here's what I find the difference is: I let them pick.
Yeah.
What charity they want to give it to. And, I think we've donated them now 460 charities. We sponsor 57 kids around the world. There's so many different things that we're able to do, but it's not because of the money. You realize by putting awareness to that, how important that is. How many people out there are doing good things like yourself, right? Making a difference in the world is huge. Love the idea of rush to conflict. As you were talking and all that, I'm thinking I can apply everything you just said to my personal life, my deep
Yes.
relationships, right? And that's not always easy. It's not
No.
always easy to rush into the cave or the other conflict. So I'm still working at it. I haven't mastered it, but I'm working at it. And the other thought I'll just leave you with on that is, I like when people ask me these kinds of questions. I say, be Gandhi, and they're like, huh? And I'm like, yeah, be Gandhi. Just be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
So the world's coming from us, not at us. So if I
Yeah.
want, clarity, I better be clear. If I want to be, like you say, like latency, then I'm the one that needs to show that I don't be late. And then, of course, it becomes a cultural thing.
Look, we teach people how to treat us. I get these
Yeah,
these business owners, and I'm like, look, what you put into the universe is exactly in
there you go.
measure what it's going to give back to you. So, and by the way, it's a lot of coaching these guys need, because like you're going to get into dust ups in business,
Yeah.
and we have a set of values. The values break the ties, and sometimes having a great reputation is going to cost you a little bit of money in the short term. So like, how do you, like, when you're faced with a tough decision, like, how do you make those decisions in the marketplace? And it's such an opportunity to be able to work with so many of these first time business owners and just give them a foundation and how to think, things that took me millions
Yeah.
of dollars of losses and years of of road rash to be able to learn. And then, go forth, and we go as a unit. We got hundreds of franchise owners out there. We move as a unit, we move as a group, we move in unison, and we execute on our business plan. And easier said than done. I know we're going to come up against time here. There's something, I have a bunch of stuff, but there's one thing that I would like you to speak to, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because I do a lot of work on the first thing that I have to do with these franchise owners is I've got to talk to them about their limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And, I hit them right between the eyes with, look, this is an inflection point. You just wrote a check for a business. That takes great courage. You stepped across the line. Now you can't recontract. Why in the world would you try to make this business 50% better than the life that you already had? Why don't you make it 5 times better or 10 times better? And then once you put your business plan, why don't you challenge yourself to say, if I had to do twice as much in half the time, gun to my head, how could I, what could I do it? So really pushing people into these solution sets, but it's really about everybody, we all are right where we are in life based on arguing with ourselves about our limiting beliefs. And, I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm not good enough for this. I don't have the resources for that. I don't deserve it, whatever it is. And, people like Elon Musk, he has certain, conditions that don't allow him to have limiting beliefs. So he just sees we have to get to Mars. So then he does a regression analysis and he works backwards from it. Next thing you know, he can launch a rocket ship every hour on the hour and land it on its rear. So it's, but that's just a function of not having any limiting beliefs. So why can't you, I, or anybody else subscribe to that? But you said something that you made a distinction between limited beliefs and liberating beliefs.
Yeah.
And that was the longest question of the history of the show.
No, I love it. I love it because you're on it. You're on it. See, I think it starts with beliefs, right? And that's the idea. So when you get into it, you go, well, what's limiting me? What's causing me stuckness? What's holding me back? And more importantly, what's liberating me? Okay. Where can I do that 5X, that 10X that you talked about? I think that it comes from a concept I heard once in cognitive psychology that goes like this. It says, human beings, you and I, we don't perform at our full potential. What we actually perform at is a belief level. Now, there's liberation in that, because what that means is if you can raise your own belief, your own performance will follow. Okay, that's great for a franchisee owner. But the challenge in franchisee is all the other people, right? So it's more important, how do you raise someone else's beliefs so that they will follow? And then the whole tide raises. And that's the challenge, right? We as owners or leaders, how can we scale this to everybody? But it starts with yourself. I like to use that cadence of execution I talked about. The magic is in the debrief. We didn't get a chance to do too much of that, but you're probably going to want to have me back on. I know both of us got to run, but at some point, I'm honored to come back and talk more. I love.
Let's do a whole thing on focus. Let's do a whole show on dynamic focus and that, because that's some of the real money that was in your book. And I really got a lot out of that. But so we can keep going on this. I'll miss my flight. I don't care. John, I fly commercial. I don't fly the jets. But so last question for you before we have to pop off here. And well, first of all, you want to give a shout out to your new project, something you want to promote real quick?
Oh, sure. Well, first off, I just want to be grateful for you and your audience, right? Anything I can do to support them. Couple things, if you go to my website, johnfoleyinc.com, and you click on, I have a takeaway called the mindset and methods. So it kind of recapsulates some of the things we've been talking about. Couple pages. As a franchisee owner or who's ever listening, it gives you a boost, right away, actionable. So that's fine. I'm going to put out that new book called The Glad to Be Your Mindset. In fact, that was the call I was on right before you. And that's going to be pretty powerful. So just want to be of service to others, right? There's lots of information there. But what do you got? How do you want to send people off?
Last question. If you had one sentence to make an impact in somebody else's life, what would that be?
Well, the idea of who are you, right? And so here's my sentence. When you ask, who is John Foley, or who am I is a better question. I like to say I'm an angel. And I said, why do you pick that? It's because I was doing some reading on wisdom, and it says an angel has 5 qualities. An angel's a messenger, an angel gives guidance, an angel protects, an angel's a warrior, and above all else, an angel serves others. Well, Jeff, I don't know if that's really the 5 or not, but when I read that, I'm in. I just said,
Yeah.
I'm in. So I would say, find the answer to that question. Who am I? And I'm an angel, and I'm here to inspire 1 billion people to live and give life in all its fullness. That's the sentence.
Perfectly said. Great place to end. John Gucci Foley, thank you so much for your service to this country. Thank you so much for the inspiration that you provide to all of us. And this has been John Foley, and I am Jeff Dudan, and we have been On the Homefront. Thank you for listening.
Jeff, glad to be here.
Thank you, sir.